The feeling hit me before the sound ever did. It crawled up the back of my neck like a cold hand, slow and certain, the kind of feeling you get when you know you are not alone. I had been riding the north fence line of my Montana ranch for hours, the morning quiet stretched wide and empty, autumn's hooves steady beneath me. Nothing was supposed to be out there with us, and yet I knew something was watching. I slowed Autumn to a walk and turned in the saddle, scanning the pine ridges rising dark and thick around the trail. The air was still, no wind, no birds. Too quiet. Autumn's ears pinned back, her muscles tight under the saddle, and she gave a low snort that told me she felt it too. That was when I heard it. A sound so small and broken it cut straight through the silence. Not a horse's call, not really, more like a thin cry that didn't have enough strength behind it. It came again, soft and desperate, somewhere behind us. My hand drifted closer to the rifle on my saddle without thinking. Out here, you learn fast that fear keeps you alive. I waited. Then something stepped out from the trees about 60 yards back, and my breath left my body all at once. It was a foal. Tiny, maybe 3 or 4 months old at most. His palomino coat was dull with dust, his legs so thin they shook as he stood there, like they might fold at any second. His ribs showed clear under his skin, and his dark eyes were wide and fixed on me with a look I'll never forget. He wasn't just scared, he was determined. This little foal had been following me. I slid down from the saddle slowly, keeping my movements calm. I softened my voice the way you do when you don't want to scare something already halfway gone. "Easy, little one. You're okay." He took one step toward me, then another. Hunger pushed him forward more than trust. Up close, the truth of his condition hit hard. He was starving, dehydrated, burrs tangled in his mane, scratches along his legs from forcing his way through brush he was too small to handle. He was barely standing. I pulled a water bottle and a protein bar from my saddlebag, tore the bar into pieces, and sat down on the dirt to look smaller, less threatening. I held a piece out in my open palm. His nostrils flared as he smelled it. Then he stepped close enough to take it, lips trembling as they brushed my hand. When he chewed, I saw it. A wound on his shoulder. Not from a fall, not from branches. A bullet graze. My stomach dropped hard. Someone had shot at this baby. When he finished eating, he pressed his head into my chest and made the softest sound, almost like he was crying. His whole body shook against me. This wasn't just hunger. This was fear. This was trauma. Someone had taken him. Someone had hurt him. Someone had tried to get rid of him. I knew right then I couldn't leave him. But the ranch was 8 miles away. He was too weak to walk it and far too big for me to carry. I made a choice my ranch hands would later call reckless. I guided him gently toward Autumn and lifted his exhausted body across the saddle. His legs hung on one side, his head on the other. He didn't fight. He didn't have the strength. I took Autumn's reins and started walking. It took 4 long hours. My arms burned from holding him steady. Every step felt heavier than the last. Before we reached the barn, I used my satellite phone to call Dutch Calloway, my foreman. I told him to have the vet ready. He didn't ask questions. By the time we reached the barn, the sun was sinking low, the sky washed in gold. Dutch met me with Dr. Alina Vasquez, the toughest vet I knew. They lifted the foal gently and laid him in fresh straw under warm lights. 14 weeks old, malnourished, dehydrated, infected bullet wound. Then the rest came out. Rope burns on his legs, marks on his muzzle, signs of restraint. This foal didn't wander off, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. Someone took him. His mother fought hard. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't need to ask what that meant. That night, I stayed in the barn. I named him Scout for the way he had followed me through the wilderness. Dutch brought coffee I barely touched. The lantern light flickered over Scout's small body as he slept. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" I asked. That he was trying to lead me somewhere. Dutch nodded. If his mama's alive, he might be the only one who can take us to her. Scout lifted his head weakly and looked at me, trusting. At first light, I made the choice that would change everything. We were going to follow his trail. And I had no idea how dark that trail was about to become. Dawn came hard and cold, the kind of morning that makes your bones ache before you even move. I stood in the ranch yard pulling on my jacket, the sky still pale and sharp above the mountains. From inside the barn, Scout called softly, his small voice thin but steady. It pulled at my chest, but I knew leaving him was the only way to help him. Dutch rode up beside me, his face set, a rifle strapped to his saddle like it was part of him. He didn't need to say much. We both knew this land too well to ignore what Scout had survived. "Carson and Isla are already waiting near the North Ridge," he said. "If there's a trail, they'll find it." I nodded and swung up onto Autumn. We follow everything Scout did, every step. We moved out quiet and tight, eyes sharp, listening to the land. Scout had crossed this country alone, injured and starving, and the least we could do was honor that fight by paying attention. The first miles were slow. Rain from a few nights before had washed away most clear tracks. Still, Isla moved ahead with calm focus, reading the ground like it was a book only she understood. She stopped near a patch of pressed moss and knelt. "He stepped here," she said. "Slept here, too. See how the moss is crushed uneven?" My throat tightened. I pictured Scout lying there alone in the dark, scared and hurting, and still getting back up. We followed her lead through thick pine stands. Carson spotted a pale hair caught on a thorn, then a place where small hooves had scrambled over a fallen log. Piece by piece, Scout's lonely journey came back to life in front of us. 3 hours in, Carson suddenly froze. He crouched near a muddy stretch of ground and pressed his fingers into deep ruts. "These aren't animal tracks," he said. "Truck tracks. Heavy ones. Trailer, too." A cold wave washed through me. "How old?" 3 days, maybe 4. Dutch's voice went low and angry. "Poachers. No honest rancher hauls horses this far off any road." We followed the tire marks deeper into the mountains. The trees grew thicker, the silence heavier. After a while, Isla raised her hand. "Camp ahead." Through a break in the trees, we saw it. A clearing, a rundown trailer, cold ashes from a fire, a metal corral made of portable panels. It was empty, but the ground told a violent story. Inside the corral, the dirt was torn up from panic and pain. Blood stained the metal. In one corner, caught on a jagged edge, was a tuft of pale hair. Scout's color. "This is where they kept him," I whispered. Dutch called from the trailer, "Rebecca, you need to see this." Inside were tranquilizer darts, bottles of horse dye, fake paperwork, and an unregistered branding iron. On an open laptop were records of wild horse sales. They've been stealing Mustangs, changing them, selling them. My hands shook. "And Scout's mother?" Dutch scrolled, then stopped. "Palomino mare, high value, listed with a foal. Foal marked as disposed." The room tilted. "They tried to kill him," I said, "but he got away." Isla appeared in the doorway. "Fresh signs. One horse moved west in the last day and a half, injured." My heart slammed hard in my chest. Then she's alive. We moved fast after that, deeper into land so rough it barely showed on any map. Over rocky ridges, through dark timber, into a narrow ravine hidden unless you stood just right. And there she was. A Palomino mare stood trapped in the box canyon, thin and bleeding, but proud. Her ears pinned back, teeth bared, ready to fight. A mother who hadn't given up. I stepped forward slowly. "Easy, girl. We're here to help." She didn't trust me. She limped back, blood dark on the ground. My chest hurt watching her struggle. I pulled out my phone and played a short video, Scout calling from the barn that morning. The sound echoed through the ravine. The mare froze. Her ears shot forward, her head lifted. Then she answered, a broken, desperate call that split the air. She staggered toward the sound, legs shaking. Tears burned my eyes. "Your baby's alive," I whispered. "He's safe." Dutch radioed for Dr. Vasquez. A helicopter came in low, loud against the mountains. We worked fast to stabilize her, setting up shelter right there in the canyon. There was no way to move her yet, and Scout couldn't come through that terrain. All we could do was wait, and pray we weren't already too late. I barely slept that night. The wind cut through the canyon in sharp bursts, rattling the temporary shelter we had built around the mare. Every time she shifted or breathed too hard, my eyes snapped open. She stood there, wounded and thin, but still alert, still watching every movement like she was guarding something precious. And she was. Dr. Vasquez worked with steady hands, cleaning the deep wound along the mare's hip, flushing out infection and wrapping it tight. "She's strong," she said quietly, "but strength only goes so far without rest." We all knew what that meant. Time was the one thing we couldn't rush. By morning, the plan was clear. We would bring Scout to her. It took hours to build a safe path down into the canyon. Boards, ropes, slow, careful steps. When everything was ready, I walked back to the ranch myself. The moment Scout saw me, he cried out, louder than he had since the day I found him. I clipped the lead on gently, my throat tight. "It's time," I whispered. The entire way back, Scout called for his mother. The sound of it cut deep. When we reached the canyon edge, he froze for just a second, ears high, nose lifted. He had caught her scent. I loosened my grip on the rope. Scout bolted. His legs were still weak, but his heart was strong. He ran as fast as he could across the canyon floor. The mare lifted her head, her body bracing on trembling legs. She answered him, her call raw and breaking. They met in the middle. Scout pressed into her chest, and she wrapped her neck around him, grooming him fast and frantic, checking him, crying into him. Everyone watching broke. Even Dutch turned away. I stood there with tears running down my face, knowing I was watching something sacred. For the next days, the canyon changed. What had felt like a grave slowly became a place of healing. The mare, now named Freedom, grew stronger with care and time. Scout never left her side. He slept pressed against her, safe at last. 3 weeks later, she was strong enough to move. The trip back to the ranch was slow and careful, but Freedom trusted us. When the trailer doors closed behind her and Scout, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just saving 2 horses anymore. I was protecting something bigger. Back at the ranch, they were given a quiet pasture under tall pines. Scout gained weight. Freedom's coat began to shine again. But I noticed something else. Freedom watched me with calm awareness, like she knew I had listened when her baby cried for help. Law enforcement moved fast after that. The poaching ring fell apart piece by piece, arrests across states, auctions investigated, all of it traced back to one small foal who refused to quit. One evening, Dutch stood beside me at the fence. "If Scout hadn't followed you," he said, "they'd still be out there." I nodded. He didn't just survive, he saved her. As the weeks passed, a call came from the Bureau of Land Management. They wanted my ranch to become a sanctuary for rescued Mustangs. Freedom and Scout would be the first. I said yes without thinking. Life changed fast after that. New fences, new barns, specialists brought in, donations from people who heard Scout's story. The ranch became something more than land. And Scout grew into it, stronger every day. But his journey wasn't over yet. A year passed faster than I thought it would. The ranch didn't feel like the same place anymore. Where there had once been open land and quiet fences, there was purpose now. Horses that had been hurt or stolen came to heal. Some stayed, some went back to the wild. Every one of them carried a story. Scout became the heart of it all. He was no longer the trembling foal I had carried across my saddle. He grew tall and strong, his palomino coat bright again, his eyes calm and smart. He followed me everywhere, like he still needed to make sure I was there. When new rescues arrived, scared and unsure, Scout stood near them, steady and gentle, like he understood their fear better than anyone. Freedom healed, too. When Dr. Vasquez finally cleared her to choose her path, I opened the gate myself. She stood there for a long moment, ears flicking, nostrils wide as she tasted the open air. Then she turned back to Scout. She pressed her muzzle to his neck, slow and careful, like she was memorizing him. Then she ran. Her golden coat flashed as she disappeared into the mountains where she belonged. I felt a tight ache in my chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was respect. She didn't disappear forever. Every few months, Freedom came back. Sometimes alone, sometimes with other horses, sometimes with new foals at her side. She always found Scout first. They touched noses, quiet and close, like no time had passed at all. Watching them never got easier. It always hit me the same way. 10 years went by. Scout stayed at the sanctuary. He became a symbol of everything the place stood for: strength, trust, second chances. People came from all over to see him. Kids reached out with careful hands. Broken horses leaned toward him like they knew he was safe. Freedom still returned, older now, but proud. Every visit felt like a gift. One late afternoon, I stood at the north ridge where Scout had first followed me. The sun dipped low, painting the land gold. Scout stood beside me, his head resting against my shoulder, warm and solid. "You changed everything," I whispered, "because you didn't give up, because you trusted me." Scout lifted his head and looked at me, dark eyes steady and knowing. From the distance, Freedom called to him. Scout answered with a soft, gentle whinny that rolled across the land. I smiled through tears. One starving foal, one desperate cry, one moment that changed everything. Sometimes the smallest voice leads you to the biggest miracle.